Hey everybody, this is Joshua Howell with Nerfherders Assemble. I want to do something special today on May the 4th, and this is a very last minute thrown together thing. I should have thought about this in advance, but I did not. So anyway, I wanted to do something to celebrate May the 4th, and the most recent thing, Star Wars related, that's been on my mind has been modding my Arcade1up cabinet. I bought that amazing Atari Arcade1up cabinet, and I already thought that it was everything that I wanted. But of course, it was just the Atari games from way back in the day, and I grew up on the Sega trilogy, the Star Wars trilogy games, and those were amazing. And I saw on a Facebook group, the Arcade1up and Modding group, I saw this guy who was modding Star Wars cabinets. And I mentioned it on the podcast before, but I reached out to him, and apparently I wasn't the first person to think to reach out to him to see if he would mod mine, and we set up an agreement and everything, and I shipped him my yoke. But he has been doing these amazing mods to just be able to play some of the more modern Star Wars games on there. And so I thought I would do a quick interview with him and record that and share it with you guys. So here it is. Welcome, B Kong, to the podcast. Thank you for joining us on such short notice. How's your day going?
Yeah, pretty good. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, I found you on the Facebook group, the Arcade1up and Modding group, and I just joined that. I've had a couple Arcade1ups downstairs for a while, and I just wanted to start modding it. And you started posting these videos of modding the Star Wars cab that they put out recently. How did you get into that? Did you just kind of want to do it, or do you have a background in that, or?
No, I'm just a fan like you that bought the arcade cabinet, in December, and had been curious about joining and modding it myself. And originally, when I got the Star Wars game, I really wanted to find a way to play the modern Star Wars games, right? And have an all-inclusive cab. But there was so little information about modding Star Wars. There was a ton of information about any of the other traditional Arcade1up cabs, like Street Fighter or any of those that you can do a multi-cade with a Pi or PC. But like literally zero information on, can you change this yoke and add it into a PC or Pi and get it to play other games? So tons of research and found a short video from somebody on YouTube that said, hey, you can actually successfully wire this up into what's called an APAC encoder. It's from a company called Altimark that makes different encoders. IPAC is probably the more well-known encoder that people use for home arcades. And they said, yeah, it could work. And I was like, awesome, let me just put a feeler out and see if I can buy it and take apart my own yoke and figure it out. So that was the start of it. And that was about I'd say like 2 months ago, where I started tinkering just to see if it could be done. And learned a lot since then, and putting together my own image to play things. I mean, I think we're all fans, and the fact that we can play these home arcade games on a single device. That was the goal, right? That I can have not a true to arcade experience, but enough where I can play any racing game I want, the Star Wars games, and just have fun with it. So I'm still learning the process and looking forward to continuing to improve it.
Well, I found your YouTube video, which is a long and very detailed video, but it's really impressive, all the parts and things you put into it. How much trial and error did it take to get to that point? I mean, there's so much in that video. I was a bit overwhelmed, but I can only imagine the steps that it took to get to that point.
Yeah, I think learning as you build is always a fun way that I've kind of like learned how to tinker. And as people were seeing me doing it, there was a lot of folks in the community that were asking like, oh, do you have a tutorial? Like, what steps are you doing? I'm following along. And part of that arcade modding community is sharing and learning from each other. So as I got more ideas and tips from people, I think my mod continued to evolve that same way. So I learned a little bit about wiring up some buttons, or I learned a little bit more about how to make my PC emulation work more with it, and then started becoming more of a de facto expert on analog controls. I think that's the biggest unique thing that you see different, that this yoke is essentially an analog control that uses potentiometers, right? So you have an x-axis and a y-axis, and there are some classic arcade games that use that, but for the most part, many regular joysticks that you see are those digital joysticks that just use regular inputs. So
Right.
learning what works and what doesn't, what games require an analog signal, what doesn't. That was probably like the hardest like learning part. And then, obviously when you're using software, it's a lot of trial and error to see, does this button mapping work? Does this kind of setting work? So emulation is ever going to be perfect, right? If you're looking for like a true to arcade experience, you usually would just have one game, one arcade setup that those controls are mapped perfectly to it. But if you're looking at a multi-system arcade machine, you have to kind of make some sacrifices here or there to get things to work. But it's been fun. The learning process and modding, that video, again, took a whole weekend of recording. I had a vision of sharing the tutorial, and I'm glad that people really enjoyed it. It's detailed, but like I put the thought of, I use most stuff that I can find in my own house. Yes, I bought some external things like the basics, but that
Sure.
video was designed for, if anybody really wanted to spend the time, it was a guide that I wish I had, right? But that was the goal, to get more people doing it. And I hope more people start doing this mod. There really hasn't been a ton of people that have done it yet.
Well, and so you showed me this earlier. The viewers can't really see this, but you are sitting on like a sit down version of the cab. You created a
Mhm.
chair and everything, and put the artwork.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Arcade1up saw what you did, but now they've got that for pre order on Walmart.com and everything. So you kind of paved the
Yeah.
way
Well,
for that.
yeah, well, they announced that during CES in
Oh,
January,
did
so
they?
we knew like they knew that the sit down version was coming. It just wasn't like widely like publicized that it was happening.
Sure.
But I mean, so many people had already bought the stand up one. It's like now you're announcing the sit down one, which is really cool. But with things like that, you never know it's going to come up or when it's going to happen. So I was like, I think I would prefer a sit down, because I had come. The thing about when you mod anything of your own is that the ideas of what you can do and the possibilities are always spinning. So I went
Sure.
from, I'm going to keep it a stand-up cab, I'm going to add pedals for a standing thing to step on it. Instead of having a throttle like built into my control panel, I originally had something on the side. And then I was like, I'm just going to make it a sit down so I can have like actual pedals. So it kind of just evolved that way. I didn't really have a blueprint when I was building it. And I
Yeah.
had seen somebody else. And so this is the chair that you're talking about. This is one of
Yeah.
those old gamer rocker chairs you would buy for like $35, and it's just like on its own is like the most uncomfortable thing, because I never sat in it and it was sitting in my spare room.
Hmm.
And then I found out that, hey, like somebody else is gonna like put it in their chair. So like, yeah, it's just literally attached into the base, sitting on another stool. I just shaved this down a little bit. So yeah, it's comfortable. I mean, I actually had to stuff it with an old stuffed animal that I sacrificed. So this cushion chair is now manageable. But this is the coolest part. I didn't realize it, but at the time I'd never used this feature. But this has
Hmm.
audio speakers that I have mounted into the cab too, so I get surround sound when I play,
Oh,
as it comes
nice.
in the front and the back. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that comes in handy.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what is your favorite Star Wars game? I mean, even if it wasn't something you could put in the cab, but
Mhm.
I mean, I'm guessing you're a Star Wars fan to put this much effort into the arcade units here.
Yeah, gaming and Star Wars obviously is a pretty big popular series to follow. But I think trilogy still probably is my favorite game. Star Wars Sega trilogy.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and it's actually really fun on the yoke. It plays really well. It's one, if you looked at the original classic game, and I know you can't see it, but that was just a vector graphic with the little cursor on the screen, right? And so
Right.
you're using the yoke to control the cursor. And trilogy is almost like it's like the updated version of that, right? Where you still have a cursor on the screen and you're using the yoke. I know the original arcade version, you're using kind of more of a traditional analog joystick style, but I think it works fantastic. So I think gameplay wise, just the funness of it, that one's really cool. The modern Star Wars Battle Pod, if you haven't played that yet, that's an
Yeah.
amazing arcade game that costs like $2-3 in arcade, and I've only probably played it once or twice because it was so expensive. And uh,
Right.
that- yeah, it's just kind of a quarter suck to play any more than once just to get the experience. But
Hmm.
that's a really fun game too. Just a little bit different using this style of controller for it. But in terms of like Star Wars games, like trilogy games, that one's probably my favorite.
Well, you are making a lot of people's dreams come true. I've been seeing
Yeah.
tons of people commenting on your videos on the Facebook page, asking you to mod theirs and everything. How how many orders do you have right now? I mean, I'm sure you are backlogged a little bit.
Yeah, so I did get a lot of people messaging me for requests, and that was something I honestly I never had originally planned on modding other people's cabs. I didn't think that there would be a big demand for it, but I thought the tutorial would be good to share kind of the work, and happy to help people along the way. But as you know, it is detailed, and it helps if you have the tools and a little bit of the knowledge. So I've gotten probably over a dozen plus inquiries, just like
Wow.
asking about pure cost and whatnot. And I've had about five current folks that have committed to doing the mod. And the majority of it is really just parts. I think
Hmm.
investing in a PC that can run it is the most important thing, because that's the biggest guts that you're going to work on. So people have their own PC that they can transform. The basic parts, it's very minimal. You need like the APAC encoder, which is like $50. You need some buttons. You need to convert your LCD monitor, and that's it in terms of basics, right?
Hmm.
Beyond that, it's up to you. If you have stuff lying around your house, you can absolutely put together a cab, with your own parts for less than $150. But yeah, just putting in a little bit more extra for the time for this particular build for the launch box that has all the stuff in it. And yeah, trying to provide some good service. So that I'm moving into another realm of, I'm not doing it for me now, I'm doing it for other people. I want to make it better
Hmm.
than what I was doing, and I've been doing that. I think the coolest thing about doing other people's commissions, these are two actual control panels I made for some clients, was I got to continue playing and doing more stuff. Like, I thought I was done with my mod, but now I'm like, crap, I want to do this for my own control panel. I'm building this for somebody else. Like, all these LED buttons on the bottom were an additional component to it. This was a double joystick mod that somebody wanted because they thought it looked cool. It's absolutely not necessary at all for playing Star Wars games, but you could play like tank games or virtual on or other things too.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's been fun to continue improving it and modding it for other people, and ultimately making clients happy. And I actually have a series of YouTube videos I'm going to be posting soon that goes over each of these upgrades and updates that I've made for folks that want to learn a little bit more of the advanced work, like wiring stuff that I've improved on, adding in the additional analog controllers or buttons. So yeah, I have a series of things I'm going to be putting out hopefully pretty soon.
Well, that's awesome. That is what I've loved about your update videos that you've posted on Facebook. Seems like each one had a little different setup,
Mhm.
depending on who you were, what your customer wanted. And that's kind of cool that you're not just kind of churning out the same thing, but you're
Mhm.
experimenting with other things and
Yeah.
learning other things. So that's awesome. I did notice in one of those videos, I think you were playing Paperboy on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite non Star Wars game that you've been able to play on these cabs?
Yeah, the classic gaming games that have like some sort of a steering wheel or yoke control, like Paperboy is pretty fun. But
Mm-hmm.
man, if you thought Paperboy in the arcade was hard to play, I mean, it's setting it up on a yoke was that video you saw me was probably like the 10th or 15th time that I took it, because I didn't want to look like a complete like dope, like crashing every 2 seconds. I was
Yeah.
like, man, this is a hard game. But Paperboy is fun. I really love the Stun Runner. Is one of those
Oh yeah.
classic games that you can play with this too, and it's just super fun to remember playing these games, and you can do it. I mean, this is one of the best, most versatile mods you can do for a home arcade system, because it's a stand-up shooter. It's a sit-down arcade driver. You can play any type of flight games that you want to with it too. So anything that kind of utilizes that analog control game is really fun. Like even games like Terminator 2, right, was an arcade game with like the sit-down gun, and you have a cursor on your screen and you're shooting, but you can do that same movement with the yoke,
Mm,
where you just like kind of like you have a
right.
gun and you're shooting. So any of those gun games that have a sit down control, like Transformers Human Alliance is like a modern version that, like, anything that has a mounted gun, you can simulate that arcade analog cursor on a screen using the yoke. So it's not exactly the same, but the fact that you can do it and have so many different options at your tool.
Sure.
I'm discovering new games and taking requests to see if it works. And yeah, those are some of my favorite classics, but I love some of the newer ones too.
Yeah, that T2 game, I do remember that. That was pretty fun. And yeah, that basically is kind of a cursor game. So yeah,
Mhm.
huh. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. I'll have to try that out when I get mine back from you.
Yeah. And so as just as a basic, that my Star Wars playlist is good for those folks that want to just have it as a purely dedicated Star Wars machine. I think that's great. People can
Yeah.
turn it on; it'll go straight into that. But that the fact that you can play you know, you saw me playing Batman on it. Mario Kart DX was another game I was playing
Mm-hmm.
on it. Like any of those driving games, there's a lot of different emulators you can run. Technoparade is one of my favorites, but that has a standalone UI. So I'll be able to set that up as options for people to kind of back out of the system and then play those games. And then any of those racing games, yeah, I have Coin Ops is another front end that I really like. That's really simple to kind of navigate that I
Right.
recommend. But Launchbox Big Box can do it all too if you set it up right. But I just software. I mean, you can go deep into, you know, there's the hardware guys where I love tinkering with stuff and getting it to work, but the software guys of setting up, you know, those builds of like Pi images or PC images or CoinOps Next and things like those guys are also semi-mad geniuses to be able to put together these
Right.
pre-built images that you know, for the most part people can download for free and run, like if they can take the know-how. So I've not gotten to that level with the software side, but I want to get my set to being at a good place where people can, you know, grab it, get it mapped to their stuff. So
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the attention you've been getting. I mean, there's so many mods out there and mod videos on YouTube, but a lot of people have been paying attention to yours, especially with the Star Wars cap. So that's, I mean, it caught my attention, and I couldn't, I just kept on playing it for other people, and I can't wait to get mine back. It's going to be so fun. So
yeah,
thank you for joining us today on May the 4th. We had to do something Star Wars related, and I thought getting a chance to talk with you would be perfect. So
sounds
yeah,
good, man. Happy to do it. So I'll definitely be sending you some more videos once I get your yoke and things start working. And yeah, happy to help the community, man. That's what it's about.
awesome. And we'll definitely point people to your YouTube channel and everything as well. So yeah,
Cool.
looking forward to those other videos. But thanks for coming. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks. Take care.
Well, so that was the interview. Short and sweet, but it was really cool talking to B Kong there. He was a really cool guy, and he's been doing some really great work with his mods there. I mean, there are tons of mod videos on YouTube, but what he's been doing with his Star Wars cap is just absolutely really, really cool. And, you know, I am sure if I had the time and patience, I could learn it. But right now, I am just overwhelmed with the stuff that he's doing, and it's just so above my head. But I love watching it. It's really, really cool. The different builds that he's been doing and all that stuff. So I will link to his YouTube page in the description, and we'll put it up here as well. So go check him out and see what else he's doing. I know he's going to be adding some more stuff to his YouTube page. And we've been adding some more stuff to our YouTube page lately. You can see Seth doing a playthrough of Jedi Fallen Order. You can see some more stuff that I've been doing as well. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and may the 4th be with you.